EVE Online is about to launch its latest expansion, Cradle of War. It's bringing some pretty significant shifts to the universe, including a brand new, strictly non-PvP region called Exordium, which is designed to give new players a safe place to get their footing before venturing out into the deep end. It's also introducing new military campaigns that will permanently shape the empires based on player actions or inaction, alongside a fresh batch of new ships to acquire and fly. But if you're one of these new players checking out EVE for the first time, what exactly is EVE Online? At its core, it's a sandbox space MMO that has been running persistently for over 20 years. It is notoriously ruthless and unforgiving, built around a completely living, player-driven market where a single coordinated effort can bring down massive player-made empires. But beyond all the corporate espionage and player drama, there's actually a deep, fascinating background story to the entire universe. So let's break down the history and lore of EVE Online in about 20 minutes. Our story actually starts around the year 8000 AD. By this point, humanity had spread across the Milky Way galaxy, but resource scarcity eventually triggered massive, widespread conflicts, and everything that had been built was right on the brink of total collapse. Right when things looked their worst, scientists discovered a stable, natural wormhole leading to a completely untouched, resource-rich, distant area of space. It looked like the ultimate solution to all their problems. Millions of people poured through the rift and began aggressively colonizing this new frontier. But after a few decades, they discovered the wormhole was rapidly destabilizing. In a desperate bid to keep their lifeline open, they built a massive structure to stabilize the wormhole known as the EVE Gate. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Whether the collapse simply happened faster than anticipated or someone actively sabotaged it, the gate failed catastrophically. The wormhole snapped shut, instantly stranding the colonists on the other side without a supply line or a way home. This triggered a brutal, agonizing dark age. High technology was lost, colonies starved, and civilizations entirely collapsed. By the time humanity finally managed to start rebuilding itself, 15,000 years had passed, and Earth had become nothing more than a bedtime myth told to children. The cluster of space where humanity was left behind was named New Eden, and initially, 3 ancient human factions managed to be better off than other groups: the Talokan, the Yan-Young, and the Jove. After an unknown amount of time, the Talokan and Yan-Young completely vanished from the historical record. The Jove, however, survived by placing their population into a long stasis sleep on their way to the region of Curse, as it is called today. Hundreds of years later, when they finally woke up, they realized they were easily the most advanced power around, even though they started as the weakest among the ancient human factions. They also realized they were alone, and rose and fell 3 times before the other humans rediscovered space travel. Out of the primitive remnants of the other colonies, 4 brand new human empires slowly crawled out of the ashes: the Amarr, the Gallente, the Keldari, and the Minmatar. To understand how we got to the modern era, we have to look at how these 4 empires interacted early on. The Amarr Empire was heavily religious right from the start, and were the first to rediscover warp and gate travel. The Amarr encountered the tribal Minmatar, and the Amarr being Amarr enslaved them for 700 years. Over in another corner of the cluster, the Gallente Federation started expanding, spreading their version of democracy to their neighbors. That included the Keldari, who were much more focused on corporate efficiency and profit. The Keldari eventually got tired of the Gallente's heavy-handed oversight and broke away, which triggered the Keldari-Gallente War. During all this, the Jove, who had been observing this whole time and was now very advanced, briefly stepped out of the shadows to quietly reveal themselves to the Gallente. Both sides kept it a complete secret, and when the Civil War broke out, the Jove quietly cut ties and decided to let the empires sort it out for themselves for a while. This brings us to Titans. EVE Online is famous for them, but back in the early days of the lore, the scale of these ships was absurd. The Amarr built the very first one, called the Emperor ship. It was literally the size of a small moon, built primarily so the Amarr Emperor could take a grand tour of his territory in safety. A mobile throne, if you will. They began construction of a second one, but it required stripping entire planets of resources to construct, so more were not planned beyond the second one. After completion, a rebel leader named Canid II ended up stealing it during his revolt. By the time the Amarr finished a replacement, the two sides had worked out an uneasy peace, and the Canid kingdom kept the one they stole and became a vassal to the Amarr Empire. The Gallente and Caldari built their own massive titans during their civil war as well. But during what was supposed to be the final battle, both sides unveiled their respective behemoths. The sheer presence of these vessels made everyone rethink the entire conflict, and hostilities actually cooled down before the ships could even be used. Titan technology since then was miniaturized and perfected, so it was less resource intensive, so much so that later on the Minmatar could actually have a few of their own. Eventually, the Jove opened up diplomatic relations with the Amarr, Gallente, and Caldari. The Amarr, following their religious doctrine of reclaiming, decided to try and conquer the Jove. They were so confident in a victory that they broadcasted invasion propaganda for weeks in advance. It turned out to be a massive mistake. The Jove were master spies. They had thoroughly infiltrated the Amarr government and military, and they set a trap. The resulting battle of Vak Atioth was a complete massacre for the Amarr. It was their first major historical defeat at the hands of another faction, and it was also the first and last time a Jovian mothership was ever seen. Seeing the Amarr were vulnerable, the Minmatar launched a massive rebellion, quietly backed by the Gallente and potentially the Jove as well. The Minmatar successfully won their freedom and formed their own republic, opting to build smaller, more practical third-generation titans. A few Minmatar actually fought to remain with the Amarr, and they were given their own recognized vassal state called the Minmatar under the Amarr. They are still recognized as traitors by the Minmatar to this day. With the five empires now dealing with each other, the Jove secretly handed over Capsule technology to the Caldari, knowing their corporate structure would fast-track the research to adapt the Jovian technology for human use. This was also to see if Capsule technology adapted for non-Jovian use that could somehow find a way to cure the debilitating mental disease of the Jovian disease, a genetic mental disorder that was slowly deteriorating the Jovian population and had a 100% fatality rate. Then everything changed when Sansha Kuvakai appeared. He used cybernetic implants as a way to control populations and realize his version of a utopia. Fleets manned by these cybernetic monstrosities spread across all of the empires to abduct their citizens, to force them into their Borg-like utopian society. The Jove stepped in to unite the empires, and together they all defeated Sansha, presumably killing him, and formed CONCORD, a diplomatic entity where the empires would discuss their issues and unite against threats. Under CONCORD, Capsule technology was officially licensed out to all the empires through the Caldari Corporation Ishikon. With CONCORD, a new unified calendar was introduced in 23-236 AD, the Ulai Conference Calendar, or YC, starting at year 0 with the foundation of CONCORD. For reference, we are in year YC 128, and you can actually calculate any real-life year and subtract 1,898, and you'll get the YC year. For example, 2026 is YC 128, and 2003, when the game launched, was YC 105. It was also through CONCORD that the Jove could secretly leak technology projects to other empires through their Jovian spy networks, so no one empire gained an advantage over another and eventually challenged the Jove again. So by the time one faction revealed a technology, the other factions had an equivalent technology. This has occurred with dreadnoughts, carriers, jump drives, and other technology. A bit later down the timeline, the Amarr Emperor Hideran had passed away. During the succession trials, Space Hunger Games, House Korazor won. By tradition, the losing houses had to commit ritual suicide, but a leader named Jamyl Sarum chose to secretly become a Capsuleer in order to survive her own ritual suicide. Royalty becoming a Capsuleer completely violated the Amarr doctrine of sacred flesh. When her consciousness woke up in her new body, she realized she had a hitchhiker, an artificial sleeper consciousness known as the Other. This left her with a distinct split personality. One side a pious Amarr woman, the other a ruthless, calculating conqueror. She and her followers made a quiet pilgrimage to the Eve Gate, which, through unknown means, temporarily dampened the link between her and the Other, and went into hiding, waiting for their chance. Years later, the Empyrean Age began with a bang when the Minmatar Elder Fleet launched a massive sneak attack that crippled CONCORD and left Amarr space wide open for invasion. The Gallente and Caldari, with CONCORD out of the way momentarily, at the same time decided to start up their old grudges again as well. With the Minmatar approaching the homeworld of the Amarr, Jamyl Sarum re-emerged from hiding and stood against the Elder supercapital fleet in her home system of Sarum Prime, one jump away from Amarr. Using ancient Terran knowledge provided by the AI in her head, her followers uncovered and fit a devastating superweapon onto a single Abaddon battleship. Supported by just 12 escorts, she faced down a massive supercapital fleet, fired a single shot, and effectively deleted the Minmatar Armada. With the Minmatar fleeing, she was quickly crowned Empress, with the Church making a rare exception for her cloning history, choosing to call it a divine miracle and intervention from God. After CONCORD recovered from the attack and hostilities did not end between the empires, faction warfare zones were designated so empires and their capsular proxies could blow off some steam. Shortly after this, rogue drone space reconnected to the rest of New Eden. It exposed a dark secret. The Gallente had illegally tried to colonize 8 different regions without CONCORD's permission. The drones went rogue, and the Federation had simply buried the evidence. Meanwhile, the Other inside Jamyl's mind started getting restless. It used her influence as Empress to launch an attack on rogue drones guarding a massive, hidden Terran cache of Isogen 5, a rare material tied to Terran technology. The attack triggered a catastrophic detonation that quantumly linked to other caches across the cluster. This was the Salin incident, and it killed millions of people instantly. The raw energy of the explosions and their simultaneous timing fractured space-time, allowing unstable wormholes to appear across New Eden, leading to a hidden region called Anoikis, or wormhole space, far removed from New Eden with no recognizable stars in the sky. The Amarr instantly raided this new space, harvesting technology from ancient sleeper enclaves to create cybernetic Templar super soldiers. The other empires quickly copied the tech, creating dust soldiers. But this turned out to be an elaborate plot by the Other to download its digital AI entities into physical human bodies. It also turned out the sleepers were just an ancient offshoot of the Jove who had split away thousands of years ago. Once the plot was discovered, the dust soldiers were systematically purged across New Eden, which serves as the lore reason for the shutdown of the game Dust 514. The surviving dust soldiers formed a mercenary group called the Arkhambine. Sansha's nation eventually made a resurgence, using localized wormholes to raid Empire space and allegedly stealing advanced technology directly from the Jove, continuing to be a threat today and held back only by Capsuleers. But a larger threat emerged when the Other grew tired of its plans being interrupted. It began to raid sleeper enclaves, harvesting bodies and turning them into the Drifters. Utilizing incredibly advanced technology from the Second Jovian Empire, the Drifters turned around and attacked the remaining Jove infrastructure in the Jovian regions. The Drifters attacked the system of W477-P, Caroline Star, to destroy an ancient Dyson swarm of Talocan construction the Jove used for travel, and players discovered Thera as a result, a massive solar system that used to link to W477-P and was part of an ancient Talocan wormhole travel network that once directly connected all of Anoikis together, not the disconnected mess we know today. In this system, the Sisters of Eve had bases and stations established, likely with secret Jovian help. They've not been forthcoming with why they were there or who helped them get to Thera, which would have otherwise been inaccessible without access to Jovian space or Jovian assistance. The destruction of the Talocan Dyson swarm in W477-P resulted in the star going supernova. With the advanced technology present, the explosion occurred at superluminal speeds, meaning that you could see the explosion 100 light years away within the same week that it happened. The resulting shockwave did a number throughout Jovian systems, and it also decloaked and damaged Jovian observatory stations littered throughout New Eden. The Jovians have spied on the empires for hundreds of years, showing how they stayed ahead of the empires at every step. Many secrets still reside in these structures. Realizing their time was up, the few remaining Jove officially abandoned New Eden entirely, with some still here in hiding under strict non-interference rules, leaving the rest of New Eden to decide its own future and fate. The Drifters then focused their attention on the empires now that they had mopped up the last of the Jovians' official presence in New Eden, specifically targeting the Amarr. This brief conflict culminated with the assassination of Empress Jamyl Sarum, destroying her Titan while on tour and her pod. This was likely to release the Other from her mind. Despite being a Capsuleer, she hasn't been seen since. Around the same time, the corporate mega coalition known as the Upwell Consortium was founded, employing advancements in technology for Capsuleer use that even make the Jove cautious. Eventually, Drifter activity slowed down, mostly because they found themselves losing a war in a subspace realm called the Abyss. They were fighting a heavily modified faction of humans known as the Triglavians. The Drifters, Triglavians, Jovians, and Sleepers all appear to be related to each other, given that we know the Sleepers used to be part of the Jovians, and the Drifters look like Second Empire Jove, and the Triglavians call the Drifters the ancient enemy. There's a lot to imply here, as well as still more to learn about their relationship. The Triglavians pushed the Drifters out, became aware of the residents of New Eden, and turned their attention to New Eden. To counter the invasion, CONCORD and Upwell formed a defensive coalition called Edencom. Despite the resistance, the Triglavians, with assistance from Capsuleers who decided to side with the Triglavians, successfully captured 27 solar systems rich in Isogen 5. Isogen 5 can only be found in certain types of stars. They deployed massive stellar anchors that pulled those systems out of our layer of space-time and into the Abyss, creating a brand new isolated region called Pachvin, where they plot their next moves still. This brings us closer to the modern landscape of the lore. A mysterious figure known as the Deathless emerged, occupying an ancient Second Jovian Empire stronghold called the Fulcrum inside the hidden system of Zarzak, part of an old Jovian transit network. He managed to, loosely, unite the Angel Cartel and the Garistas pirates, and the leftover dust mercenaries of the Arkhambine also came to join his Vanguard program. As a result of the Deathless slowly unlocking Jovian technology, the Drifters initiated a war against everyone. The Empires managed to push them back into their wormhole hives, with the Amarr, Keldari, Minmatar, Edencom, and the Triglavians each claiming a hive system for themselves. With experiments conducted in these hive systems, methods to find phased fields had been discovered, containing incredible material that could refine into any other material. The hidden material the Jove had used to artificially advance their technology while keeping it a secret from the rest of New Eden. Most recently, the technology of the Drifter wormholes has been used to launch a massive hyperspace attack generated by a faction who owns a Drifter Hive, striking the heart of the Keldari economy, leaving the famous trade hub of Jita under CONCORD jurisdiction after its citizens lost confidence in the Keldari state's ability to defend them. At the same time, CONCORD, in cooperation with the Air Capsuleer Training Corporation, opened up Exordium, a designated safe zone meant for training new Capsuleers without the threat of open combat. However, an exploit was recently taken advantage of, disabling CONCORD's ability to restrict Empire warfare to designated faction zones. The Empires wasted no time resuming full-scale conflict with Operation Warpath. In addition to this, the region of Syndicate, formerly of the Gallente, has been annexed by the Keldari state. And this leads into the Cradle of War expansion with the new military campaigns, where you can assist the Empires in their goals with these new military campaigns. The Keldari state want to establish a Stargate connection between Black Rise and Syndicate in order to better secure their holdings. Failure means the Intaki Syndicate returns to the Gallente Federation. The Amarr have a campaign to take advantage of Jita's recent disruption, and if successful, there will be heavy reductions in trade fees for 6 months, 3 months if not successful. The Minmatar campaign is to reclaim and restore a system that used to belong to one of their tribes, and place down a new station for the Stackmanir tribe, and the Stackmanir tribe may uncover new phased fields in Minmatar high security space. And if this campaign fails, the Amarr will build a monument to the failure of the Minmatar. And the Gallente Federation's campaign, which if successful, new gates will be constructed that shorten the route between Intaki and Dodixie down to 6 jumps. As well as low-waste variant of excavator drones will be developed and made available in Federation loyalty point stores. And if this campaign fails, they are only able to construct 1 gate, which will only reduce the distance by 1 jump. And the Ore Corporation will beat them to the punch on this new drone and make it available in their loyalty point store. And that is all of the major and important story lore of EVE Online that leads up to the Cradle of War expansion. There's a lot more lore to the game, which I will be covering in future videos as time allows, so subscribe for those special videos. If you want 1 million free skill points as a new player, or an existing player who has never used a recruiter link before, you can use my referral link in the description to become my EVE Recruit, and you will get 1 million free skill points to allocate however you want to kickstart your journey in EVE Online. YouTube thinks you would like this video on screen now. Were they right? Give it a watch and find out. Consider liking, subscribing, and using my creator codes to show your support for the channel. Thank you to my amazing YouTube and Patreon members, and welcome to our newest members. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.